states as a critical component to national security. The subnational governments are not doing enough.
Okay.
So the subnational governments can make laws, they can adjudicate over these laws, but they cannot prosecute the laws. If you had state police, as an example, the state police can act as a force multiplier to the federal police, act as a force multiplier to the military, and then you can have security forces dominating better in a more designed approach. These issues of insecurity that we find ourselves confronting, whether in Sokoto or in Ondo or in Abia, you can't have the federal police everywhere, as you cannot have the military everywhere.
Okay.
So if you say what more needs to be done, there are a number of things that needs to be done, but chief of them is for the subnational governments to have their state police, and then for us to begin to drive through private sector-led initiative, building Nigeria's defense industry with a key focus on the export potential. We have DICON, and DICON has not been able to even meet the needs of the Nigerian military.
Okay.
Thankfully, you have some private players like Proforce, a number of them. I mean, the way Dangote is exporting, we can also begin to export defense equipment and munitions from Nigeria to other parts of the world, I would say, and even Africa. So in terms of what more needs to be done, we need to onshore our defense capability. Because like you saw under Jonathan administration, the government needed to procure, but we were constrained by the Lee law, some international politics and some other geopolitical considerations, which in a way incapacitated the government of the day. We couldn't deal decisively with the issues of Boko Haram at the early stages, which then snowballed into a hydra-headed monster. But thankfully, we've contained that in the northeast. But because of the pace of response that we had and the depth of it, that issue now snowballed to another problem in the northwest. So there are a number of things to do. We possibly don't have the time to exhaust all of them. But state police is a must.
Is a must. Oyekachi, very quickly, let's touch on banditry, kidnapping, and issues of unknown gunmen, especially in the southeast. You did say that we've made progress, especially in the northeast, Boko Haram issues being contained and curtailed. But how do we begin to look at issues surrounding banditry, kidnapping, and unknown gunmen in the southeast, so that we also do not have these issues snowball into what we cannot contain in the near future?
I mean, for the Southeast, I'll give kudos to some of the governors in the Southeast, governors like Governor Alex Oti, governor like Professor Chukuma Soludo.
Okay.
They've taken the fight to what we used to class as non-state actors. There would always be those sentiments towards Biafra. But the Southeast had become a confederation of some sorts, where you had cultists, non-cultist group, political actors, non-political actors, state actors themselves, according to some reports, acting out and creating some destabilization within the Southeast.
Okay.
We've always said that the non-kinetic approach is always the most sustainable approach. So we've seen governors, even the Enugu State governor, pushing hard against the sit at home. And I'm happy to report that I was in the Southeast. I drove by road from Port Harcourt to Owerri. I've been to the Southeast this year from Enugu to Port Harcourt. So the road conditions has improved. The sit at home has been largely managed. It is no longer what it used to be. So progress is being made in that area. Thanks to the military, law enforcement, but major thanks goes to the political leadership of the states, who now understand that without peace, there can be no prosperity. Without peace and security, there can be no development. So to the governors who are leading this charge, we're seeing a lot of progress being made in the Southeast, and some of these issues are now in their end states, just being phased out.
Okay.
Okay, let me come back to Mr. Adeoye. I'm sure you're all aware that we are fighting one form of insecurity or the other in the country. Yeah. But oftentimes we have seen that our different agencies, when it comes to securing the nation, they often clash. So how critical is interagency collaboration is going to help in ensuring that this fight against insecurity is solved?
Well, let me first of all say that the new rating, is not good news for us, because the last rating were 8 in the global index. And also the organization, the global index on terrorism, started as far back as 2000. So it's not an organization that is not recognized. It covers about 263 countries. That's about 99.something% of the entire world. So it's a reputable organization based in Maryland, which was started by Institute of Economics and Peace. And terrorism is seen as an act of violence against non-combatants in terms of war or in terms of peace, in the context of war. So I think that this new rating for us should also be understood in the context, because it's talking about last year. It should not be taken as an insult to the current government. The government just came in 2023. I know that was the year of election. A lot of violence took place during the election. Post-election, violence also took place. So I believe, just like my colleague said, my brother said, that the government in the past few years, has made a lot of progress in terms of, activities, capacity of terrorist organizations to unleash violence across the country. It has diminished to a very large extent. We are in this country where people are going to meet terrorists in the bush, and they were being hosted like, heroes, begging them and all that. They were on television threatening Nigerians. But now that has reduced to a very large extent. Even in my own community in Ekiti State, kidnapping used to take place almost every month. I think for the past almost 1 year, there have not been one single incident of kidnapping. So we are making progress. The movement may be very slow, but we are not moving backward. So I think I agree with what he has said. Progress has been made. Progress is being made. On the issue of agency collaboration, I think it is very crucial, because security is not just a one-dimensional issue. It is broad. It is very broad. The police has its own crucial role to play. The intelligence sector has its own crucial role to play. The DSS, the Air Force, the Army, the Navy. Because when you are talking about security, it's not just on land. There are also, activities on waterways. So the Navy also has a crucial role to play. So there is a need for interrelation between all the agencies. They should not see themselves as rivals. They should not see themselves as competing. There should be competition, but that competition should be mutual. So that means they need to share experiences, share intelligence together, so that they can work towards the same goal. And I think I am bold to say that the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, is doing a lot in terms of coordination. Look at what happens even about what happened in Oyo State, where NAFDAC went and stormed some place to, she acknowledged the role of the National Security Advisor. So it's not just about security, it's not just about terrorism alone. Even health, there are challenges of health insecurity.
And cyber.
So, that 1,000 men were, given to them by the NSA to assist them. So I think collaboration is very important. And also beyond that, there must be collaboration with civil society and communities, because they are also reservoirs of information. They have a lot of information about what happened in their community. So we need to work together so that we can achieve a common goal for the peace and security of Nigeria.
All right, Onyekachi, before we allow you go this morning, let's quickly speak to funding, the welfare of the military, as well as purchase of equipment. Can you lend your voice to these three issues, which of course also oftentimes are usually ways by which we measure how equipped or how ready men of the military are when they are discharging their duties?
Okay, thank you for the very fine question. Let me just also add to this Global Terrorism Index. I would say that because this is our field, that some of the information they are just aggregates based on what you call open source intelligence. Doesn't mean that there are some repository of credible information. They most times hazard a guess. Because if you look at the amount of gun violence and the number of people killed in 2022, for example, in the US, about 48,000 people killed by gun violence. And that's been the average even up until last year. That's not saying that we don't have issues in Nigeria. I'm just saying that the way the matters are reported are sometimes, you know, a bit skewed to favor a certain narrative. Most foreigners feel safer in Nigeria than in South Africa, for example. I feel safer in Lagos than I feel in London. Okay, so who's running the perception index in the UK? Now, and I no jokes. I'm always watching my back in the UK for knife attacks.
Right.
Now, on the issue of funding from the military, I always give this analogy. Nigeria is like a man who has married 37 wives and has very poor costs to take care of his family, let alone mend the fence and do barbed wire or install CCTV. But thankfully, we've seen that this administration is now, according to reports, making an average savings of about 1 trillion naira every month. So perhaps we are going back to the days of the 1970s when money was not a problem. So there's money now, but in terms of what that money can buy for the military when you exchange to FX, it's still very low. That's why we must onshore production. The same way you have in telecoms, you have now in the oil and gas sector, with Dangote leading the charge, we must also onshore. So when you talk about equipping the military, some missiles cost about $100,000 per missile, particularly when you are looking at high precision missiles. Some ballistic or cruise missiles can cost about $1.2 million just for a fire forget device. Do we have that kind of funds? No, we do not. So the military must be commended for fighting sometimes with their fingernails, as it were, against an insurgency that seems to be a bit well resourced. We've seen accusations against some of these INGOs, as you call them, operating in Nigeria, with allegations of them funding some of these insurgents. So you can look at the scale and size of the problem that we have.
Okay.
So that's on the equipment side. In terms of the welfare, there's no military that is trained to die. We must remember that. The military is trained to fight and to win. For them to fight and win, we must provide them with the equipment, the necessary welfare conditions, and the morale for them to take the fight to these people and to win. So if the Nigerian state is not able to fully do that because of some constraints, we shouldn't be too hard on the law enforcement, particularly the police who bear the brunt of our anger sometimes. The police should work 8 hours rotation. These people are working 48 hours sometimes. Sometimes they are working 1 week in, 1 week out without seeing their family. They are carrying an assault rifle that is worth about 1.5 million to 2.5 million in the black market. Okay. The rifle is has more worth than the life of the policeman, because what you see is that they shoot the policeman, take the rifle, and they go. Okay. The man has no bulletproof, has no life cover, has no pension, has nothing. Some of them are shot, and it's their commanders that must raise money. It's in this country we've seen some retired former government officials come and say that the police get 10,000 naira per month, to fuel their station. So you can see the problem they have. Unfortunately, they cannot protest. They cannot come out to speak up. You know, without some of the state governors, like Lagos State, for example, funding the police, Lagos would have been, just been in a state of pure chaos. Right. So funding and welfare is very important. Okay. We must do it deliberately. It must be by design, and we must have a certain presence of mind to understand that security is not cheap. Good security is not cheap. The security we have today in Nigeria is a reflection of our level of investment in security. Okay. All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here this morning. Thank you so much, Onyekachi Adekoya, CEO, Aquiline Intelligence, for speaking with us on the program today. Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right, and would also like to thank you, Mr. Wale Adeoye, for finding time to be here with us on the program today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, that's the much we take on the program today. We'll take a quick break. When we return, Adebimpe and Joy will take you through their conversation.